Item 10C, adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of 66 Glock handguns and related safety equipment from LC Action Police Supply in the amount of $44,712.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. Providing you the report tonight is Lieutenant Tim Mahon, who has extensive experience in our department's range program.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. You hear me okay? The purpose of this staff report is to request the replacement of 66 handguns that have been in use since 2000 and were slated for replacement in 2010. The current firearms are in need of replacement or comprehensive refurbishing. Police Department range staff has researched specifications of several firearms manufacturers and models and has found a suitable replacement for officers' duty weapons. Due to the configuration, the new firearms and holsters and magazines will also need to be replaced. A gun-mounted light is also being requested as it will enhance officer safety during low-light situations. The recommended replacement firearm is the Glock 21 pistol for the uniformed personnel and the Glock 30 compact pistol for plainclothes personnel. The Glock pistol was a unanimous choice of the range staff and is the most commonly used firearm amongst law enforcement departments today. A notice inviting bids for the purchase of these firearms and related equipment was distributed by the Finance Department, and a total of 2 bids were received. The total purchase cost, based on the lowest bid from LC Action Supply, is $44,712 for the firearms and related equipment. $44,000 is identified in the current budget, including funds from the Equipment Reserve and Asset Forfeiture Fund. There are sufficient asset forfeiture funds to cover the additional $712, not identified in the budget. The vendor does offer a trade-in discount of the old firearms of $376 per gun. Staff is not recommending this option as there are no guarantees or control over where these guns will go and who will end up with them. Staff is recommending that the officers be provided the option to purchase their used duty weapon from the city for $200, which will offset some of the purchase costs of the new firearms. The vendor is able to give us a higher trade-in value due to the substantial purchase price and retailer's discount. Staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of 66 firearms and related equipment from LC Action Police Supply in the amount of $44,712.
Any questions?
Through the
Rico?
Chair. Lieutenant, I do like the Chief, the idea of the mounted light. I think it's a good safety feature, so we don't have officers trying to maintain a light as well as their gun. I'm glad to see that it went to the range and that there was others involved in the process to have a collective decision by the department. The one question I had is obviously as far as the grip is concerned, we have female, male officers. Obviously everybody's hand size is different. How is the grip as far as for the staff, and is it pretty universal or?
Well, this is the newest generation of the Glock. It has the ability to interchange the back straps of the grip to make it smaller or larger to better fit the officer's hand. And obviously the better comfort and fit for the officer, the more likely they are to be accurate and have more confidence in the firearm.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
Through the chair. The chief was kind enough to answer most of my technical questions before the meeting, but I had an issue with the buyback recommendation because this company is offering almost half the price of the new weapons in return, and that could definitely help our bottom line in preserving what we have in reserves. I would imagine that this company is bound by whatever federal, state regulations exist in terms of how they can dispose of them, and they would have to follow the requirements of running background checks and anything before they were to change ownership of those guns. So I don't think it would be necessarily a huge security risk in turning those weapons over to the company. And given that the weapons that we're retiring are, you know, they've got a good amount of wear, enough that we wouldn't want the officers in the field using them. I don't know how desirable they would be to the officers to purchase those back, and so we'd probably end up destroying most of them and losing the value. So that would be the only concern I would have in terms of what's being recommended in the report.
Right, and I understand your concerns. I believe probably over half the officers would probably purchase their weapons. The concern we have about selling them to LC Action is, as I stated, we have no control over who they are sold to, and yes, they will be background checked, But as we know from prior experiences, that guns that were in the hands of law enforcement ended up in the hands of criminals and were used in some heinous crimes. And that's our main concern, is they don't end up in those people's hands.
Okay. Irene?
Thank you. We had this, if I'm remembering correctly, we had a policy discussion about that very issue many years ago now. I did think how many. And that was a consensus of the council at the time that we didn't want those guns going back out into the public. However, whatever process it might have been, and I believe it was after some, do you guys remember? It was after some kind of tragedy that had happened where police officers' guns had been sold back and they were used on the police officers. So that was something that happened a long time ago that triggered part of that. So it wasn't just a police officer's decision, it was a council discussion at the time as well. And another thing we had discussed at the time, and I apologize I didn't get back to you to ask you directly, we had also talked about there's a process where they melt down the guns, and some cities use that to make a public art piece, you know, some kind of, I know, but some people do, and I think it would be art. I think it would be an appropriate thing to do, so.
That is possible. There are state and federal laws that govern when and how we can destroy those guns, and I don't know how much steel would be there afterwards. That'd be something that could be explored, I guess.
Okay. I know some cities have done it, and I'll be happy to look into it.
Through the chair, though, Lieutenant, you had indicated that if it was offered to sell back to the officers, potentially half, more or less, you believe would be wanting to make the purchase.
I believe so. Talking with the officers in the department, I think that probably about half or so would buy their guns back.
Okay. Thank you.
Discussion or action by the council? This is a resolution.
Chair, I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell. Councilmember Bedina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.